it's Miss Nelson, and today we are going to be adding and subtracting unlike fractions and mixed numbers. So in order to get to this example, if you will open up your notes that I gave you, we kind of folded it and turned it into a foldable. If you will unfold the two pieces, then you're going to be able to get to these examples. So we are going to fill in some of our steps first, and then we're going to solve our problem. In order to solve unlike fractions, you must have a common denominator. Okay, so that means that this 3 and this 6 must turn into the same number. So to do that, we have to change one or both of the fractions. So our next step is to change numerator and denominator by multiplying by the same number. Okay. Then my next step is we are going to, because in this case we are adding, we are going to add the numerators and we are going to keep the denominators. Because once we multiply our fractions and they have common denominators, now we're just following the rules from yesterday's practice of adding and subtracting fractions. And then you always simplify if possible, okay? So let's come over here and let's look at these. So I have 1/3 plus 5/6. So if I'm talking pieces, if I have thirds and I have 6, they are not the same size. So what I need to do is get them to both speak the same number in the denominator. So I know that 3 can be turned into a 6. So I'm going to leave my 5/6 alone. To get my 3 to turn into a 6, I have to multiply my 3 by 2. But the rules say that if you multiply the denominator by the number, you have to multiply the numerator by the same number. So when I multiply, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6, and I'm just going to bring down the plus 5/6. So now this looks like what we did yesterday, so we can add. So my 6 gets carried over in my denominator, and I'm going to add my numerator. 2 plus 5 is 7. So I have 7/6. That, however, is an improper fraction. So we need to divide to turn it back into a mixed number. So 7 goes in the division house, 6 goes out. 6 goes into 7 one time. And I have 1 remaining. So like we did yesterday, that 1 becomes the numerator and that 6 goes to the denominator. So my answer is 1 and 1/6. Okay, so if you have any questions over that, remember half of this problem is just like what we did yesterday, but in order for us to get it to that format, we have to change our denominators and have common denominators. Okay, so let's look at the second problem. So we're going to go right to the one next to it and we're going to subtract. So same rules. So you must have common denominator. Okay, we still change the numerator and the denominator by multiplying. By the same number, but this time we're going to subtract the numerators because it's a subtraction problem. And we are still keeping the denominators, and then of course we simplify if we can. Okay, so I'm looking to find a common denominator. I have a 6 and I have an 8. So I'm going to think of a multiple of both of these numbers that they will both go into. So remember, multiples are when we multiply 6 times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4. The answers that we get will be multiples. So I know that both of these numbers will go equally into 24. So I'm going to turn them into something over 24. Now, you could also turn them into 48. I could have just multiplied 6 times 8 and got 48, and that also would have worked. We just would have had to simplify further at the end. So 6 gets to 24 by multiplying by 4, which means I have to multiply the top by 4. So 4 times 4 gives me 16 on the top of the left. 8 gets to 24 by multiplying by 3. So my numerator is also multiplied by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So now I have a like fraction, which is easier to solve, so now we add. So I know 24 is my denominator still. 16 plus 9, I'm sorry, that should be a subtract. Ooh, I just caught that. I'm sure some of y'all were already thinking that and y'all were wondering what I was doing. So, good catch. So 16 minus 9, I'm sorry, is going to be 7. So 7 is a prime number and 7 does not go equally into 24. So your answer is 7/24. Okay, let's go to the next problem. So now we have mixed numbers. So everything remains the exact same about adding or subtracting mixed numbers, with the exception of we have one extra step in the very beginning. You have to use around the world here to make these guys into improper fractions. Okay, so once we do that, then you just follow the rules that we did right above and find the common denominator and then add them. So around the world says that you take your denominator and you multiply it by your whole number, and then you're going to add your numerator in and you're going to rewrite a fraction. So by that, 9 times 3 is 27. 27 plus 4 gives me 31, and 9 is still my denominator. Plus 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5 is 11, and 6 is still my denominator. So I've turned it into 31 over 9 plus 11 over 6. So now I have to find a common denominator between 9 and 6. I know there are multiple of them, but the smallest, both of them can go into 18. So 9 times 2 will give me 18. So I also have to multiply 31 times 2. That gives me 62. 6 times 3 gives me 18. So 11 times 3 gives me 33. So I'm just going to add these guys. 62 plus 33. That's going to give you 95. 18 is still my denominator. But that's improper. We can't leave it. So I've got to divide to turn it back into a mixed number. So if you need to do some side work to figure out how close to 95 you can get, side work is always encouraged so that you can get close as you can. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that 18 will go into 95 5 times, which is going to be 90. That's going to leave me with 5 left over. So my 5 becomes my numerator and my 18 becomes my denominator. So my answer is 5 and 5/18 as a final answer for this problem. All right, our last problem. This is going to be our subtraction problem. So, same concept as adding mixed numbers. You use around the world to make improper fractions. And then we simply follow our subtraction rules. So, let's do around the world. So, and these happen to be the same numbers that we just used, so they should be pretty easy for y'all to get. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 plus 4 is 31 over 9 minus, see, I remember the minus sign that time. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 5 is 11 over 6. So I'm going to use the same common denominator. That was going to be 18 like we did before. So 9 times 2, 31 times 2. That still gives me 62. To get 6 to 18 times 3 times 3, so that's 33. So now I'm subtracting. 18 is still my denominator. And I'm going to subtract 62 minus 33. That's going to give you, and you, of course you could do your side subtraction. That's going to give you 29. So I'm going to divide 18 outside the division house. 18 goes into 29 one time. And I have 11 left over. So that 11 becomes my numerator. So I get 1 and 11 18. So you can write this wherever you have room underneath that problem if I get my 18 to write. Okay, you didn't have to go to the side like I did. If you had extra room on the bottom, you're welcome to write on there. So if you have any questions over this, please make sure that you ask, because like I said, we're going to be dealing with a lot of fractions this year, and I want to make sure that everybody knows all the rules and knows how to do them. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.